Hello and welcome to another anime lore and theory video. I'm Shagok, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at why Ainz was scared by the scary look of literally the most popular character in all of Overlord. After Philip, of course. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, as well as say thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. It takes a lot to make Ainz feel fear, especially since due to his emotional dampener, he can't even truly perceive or experience fear anymore. Fear also might not even be the right word here. Rather, the months-long work with Neia gave the undead Overlord the sense that he was dealing with someone who on the deepest level of their soul despised and distrusted him, and whose gaze was full of contempt and sharpness, and who would not accept any gesture of kindness towards her, at least not with a lot of reluctance. After the battle against the Sunlight Scripture, after defeating the supposedly highest level of angels with ease, and after the pitiful attempt by some iron-ranked adventurer to intimidate him, one might think that Ainz had nothing to fear from ordinary humans in the New World. He faced battles against humans with confidence after all, not even unleashing his most powerful spell on the Cuts plane. But still, scaring hundreds of thousands of them just by witnessing it, and traumatizing millions, and shaking entire nations to its foundation just by the aftermath of one single spell. And in the Holy Kingdom, based on the past success, Ainz assumed he would surely find someone who would see him as an ally. But things turned out differently, because Neia's gaze outright unnerved him. For half of the Holy Kingdom arc, the undead Overlord had the impression that Neia, the very girl he had basically appointed as his bodyguard and showered with good equipment, liked him just as little as Remedios did. The reason? Well, Neia had dangerously intense eyes and noticeable dark circles around them, giving her the appearance of someone who despised everything and everyone around her, and a certain dangerous aura as well. And her friends and her teammates also even called her Murderer Girl, and her face was so intimidating that she always wore her visor when speaking publicly about Ainz. And these sharp facial features came from her father, Pavel Baraya. Though at first she didn't want to be a marksman like him, she instead chose, like her mother, to join the Paladin Order. And because of all of this, Ainz assumed that every time he did something nice for her, every time he offered her kind words, or showed her his way of thinking, she silently punished him with cold contempt. Perhaps you would have noticed the truth earlier if it weren't for the absolute embodiment of migraine, Remedios Custodio, who rejected every kind gesture outright or found something to complain about later. And her open hostile behavior shaped Ainz's perception of the rest of the Holy Kingdom, making him believe Neia thought the same about him, but was just a slight bit better at hiding it. So when Ainz was later supposed to report to Demiurge about which allies he had gained, he broke down, after months of continuous stress, and without even the possibility of sleep for his human soul to rest and recover. Ainz simply couldn't go on. Just as in the Kingdom of Riestais where Renner had switched sides, just as in the Barut Empire, where a show of force made the Emperor submit, though Ainz didn't realize exactly what had happened and what he just did, just at the very start, when he earned Khan Village's trust by saving Enri and her sister Nemu, and by tossing them 2 of the Goblin Horn General Horns, and just as when he recruited Gondo Firebeard to help manipulate the Dwarven Kingdom from within, Demiurge had been confident that Ainz surely would find allies who could help him undermine the Holy Kingdom from the inside. But this plan seemed to fail completely. Remedios had been the obvious candidate to win over. Being the leader of the entire Paladin Order made her extremely valuable. But the attempt failed. The official leader had already been replaced and no one else seemed inclined to side with Ainz. They just tolerated his presence out of necessity. Even Neia, the squire to whom he had been exceptionally kind, kept staring at him with these angry, drilling eyes. It was clear he would have to disappoint Demiurge. He would have to admit that no one should be spared, which was essentially an admission of failure, an admission of guilt, that he was just unable to find a single person willing to follow the Sorcerer King. For Ainz this was especially painful, because he knew how much work and dedication Demiurge had put into his plan, how many resources and how many other people were involved. From his time as a Japanese salaryman, he knew what it was like to have done everything right, to invest months of continuous effort alongside many of your own co-workers, only for the boss to ruin it all through sheer incompetence and ineptness, making all the hard work meaningless in the process. He remembered what he thought about his own boss in those very moments, and feared that Demiurge now might think the same about him. On top of that, Ainz was already under constant strain, having to act the part of the ruler of the Great Tomb of Nazarick day and night without any sleep or reprieve. And before Remedios and her people, he had to maintain the persona of the undead Overlord non-stop. That meant also day and night stress, without his human mind ever getting a rest. He endured one setback after another. And after months of distress, after months of masking, Ainz finally broke, dropping to one knee for a brief moment. With Neia's apparent look of just sheer contempt filling his mind. That was the last thing he thought of her. And so on the walls of the city, during the decisive battle, Neia was eliminated by Demiurge's demi-human forces, and Ainz instead focused on saving Remedios at the very last second. She was already cornered, and to her surprise her enemies were not all inherently evil souls, but rather a mixed batch. And her ultimate strike with the holy sword Zarfalesia failed in a surprisingly interesting battle, which I will talk about another time. And what followed was Mortis Ex Machina. The undead Overlord Ainz rescued Remedios and easily defeated the demi-human leaders. Remedios promptly barked at him, saying this all could have been done much earlier and that he should have made himself more useful and helped people sooner, preventing suffering sooner and earlier. And it was only then that Ainz began to realize the problem was more with Remedios specifically than with the Holy Kingdom and the other people at large, and that perhaps comparing everyone else to her was very, very unfair indeed. Thus, to the horror of the bay folk around him, those who saw Neia as the killer of their leader, Ainz revived her. And their weapons couldn't even scratch the undead monstrosity before them, while death itself gave life to their greatest enemy. What followed was a moment of social competence for Ainz. He managed to overlook Neia's gaze entirely by simply seeing nothing, closing his eyes, and just listening to the way that she had spoken to him instead. And to him, Neia's voice sounded normal and friendly, and her zeal and devotion made him think not of an enemy or of contempt, but of someone struggling to cope with her recent resurrection, who merely needed a health and stamina recovering potion to recover from her strain. Later he realized that Neia did like him, and that Chizo liked Neia because Neia liked Ainz. And at the end of the Holy Kingdom arc, Ainz put Neia to the test. Specifically, he offered to resurrect both of her parents, who had indirectly died because of him, though Neia did not know this, through an immensely powerful and expensive magical ritual, and Neia refused. Her gratitude was too great. The Sorcerer King had already done too much for her and her homeland, for her to justify such a massive use of his resources for her own personal sake. And so Ainz was truly certain Neia had become indeed an ally, even though he was undead. And with that said, now the video about the Holy Kingdom and about Ainz Olgorn's social skills and Neia's very dreadful gaze ends. And with that said, now it's your turn. What do you think about the video and about what happened to Ainz Olgorn and how he did not realize that the girl that Neia had basically an eye for him? Let me know it down in the comment section. And while you write, I say thank you very much for watching, thanks to all of my Patreons for supporting this channel, and as usual, I say my special thanks to Ada Daddy Ada, ASK, Bad Girl Ye, Bad Burrito 316, Bize, Ben C, Brandon S, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Din Pep, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feralchivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Marino, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Le Louche Britannia with a Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Loverazor, Merowek, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, Oh Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Paddy Pantum, Personage, Ruru, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Q&A Caracos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Sir Axolotl, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, The Orc Warboss, Rocket Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Xenokai, and Sonegon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon on my next video.